Being a designer can be difficult, especially if you're just starting out and don't really know about all the resources and all of that. I've been there. I spent a long time looking on Instagram and Pinterest and everywhere to learn more about the tools and systems that would help me. Sometimes you will come across some hidden gems that you wish you knew about sooner. So I am here today to share my, as I call it, designer starter pack with you. So basically this is all of like the insights and knowledge that I wish I had when I was starting as a designer. And I made this into a video, but it's also a document where you can just scroll through that points you to a bunch of different resources and gives you tips on how to build up your portfolio, like mockups, typefaces, all of that. So it's some very useful things in there, but also fun things like design playlists and coloring sheets, some extra fun things for you. So I'm condensing this video into several points to walk you through everything so that you have something to walk away with. But I also made it into a nice guide that you can download through the link in the description. It's free, so have at it. So let's dive into the first part, which is typefaces. So it's important to always be armed with a set of trustworthy typefaces that will never really fail you for any project. Starting with some of these will help you kickstart your confidence in design and won't lead you astray very easily. So these are my favorite sans serif and serif typefaces. And two great and reliable places to download fonts are at Adobe Fonts and Google Fonts. The ones at Google Fonts are all open source, they're free. And the ones at Adobe Fonts, you would need like an Adobe license so that you're licensed to use all of them. So that's like a huge amount of typefaces that you have access to. But if you don't have an Adobe license and you want to download the fonts directly, you can also download them from the Type Foundry. You just click on the font and then you see the Type Foundry, directly download them from there. Next up is mockups. If you want to impress a client with your design work, then mockups are the way to go. You don't have to print anything, you don't have to do anything in the physical realm, you just slap your design on there and you're ready to go. So it's the best way to bring your design to life in order for the client to be sold on your design. My favorite mockup websites are the following. First is Bendito Mockup. They have some of the best mockups I've ever seen. It's in the biggest variety and for all kinds of purposes. And the main thing that I love is that the mockups come in packs. So you have like the whole set in one style, and it's perfect if you want to display your designs for your client's specific art direction, which I think is really important to convey your idea properly. So they have stuff about like cafes and restaurants and just like urban stuff. It's really great. There's also Mockups Design. The owner of this site makes all of the mockups literally for free. It's honestly a gem. What I really like about this site is that they have mockups from different angles. So it's like one thing in different angles, and I think that's really great if you want to highlight something specific. And then another one is Graphic Pair, and their mockups are more product based instead of real life, so there's just a background to it. They have quite a lot of free mockups too, where you just need to make an account to get them. And the quality is really good, and they have a lot of different mockups, like actually things that I would think like, when would you even use this? But I guess sometimes you do. So they have a really nice variety. And lastly, we have Unblast, which is like a mockup bank. They basically collected links from all kinds of mockup websites and added them on their site altogether. So you can just search for something and find what you're looking for, and then you're directed to the respected site. Practically all of them are free, but you'd have to check. Another honorable mention we cannot forget is Mr. Mockup. They are amazing too. They have a huge variety of mockups and also offer a lot of them for free. So I'd highly recommend to check them out. I think paying for mockups is good if you have like a specific need for them, but having free ones is also really nice to get you started. So that's why I'm also saying like some are free, some are paid. It's really your own consideration what you need at that moment. My friends at Bendito Mockup are actually one of the partners featured also in this video, and I'm happy that I can offer you a 20% discount off their entire shop and all of their mockups in it when you use the code IRISVD20 at checkout. Yeah, much love to all the mockup websites because it really makes my life as a designer that much more fun and easy. The next step is photography. You just want high quality and engaging images that help the client understand your vision, because you can't really get away with like using general stock images. Luckily, I have some really amazing websites. These are my favorites and I use them almost daily. The first one is Stills, and it's honestly by far my favorite. They have images only by curated photographers, so the team at Stills selects these photographers. And I love the fact that they don't have like a single AI related image. Nothing is AI generated, except for like the way that you use the website with the search and everything, but pictures on there are all made by people. As you can tell by just going through their website, all the images are just absolute art. Like, it's very beautiful. I really like this website a lot. Other alternatives to finding images are on Unsplash, Pexels, and Pixabay. They are practically just filled with loads of images in different styles, and as you can see, each of these websites has like a specific style when you look up a specific keyword. So You can go through all of them and find the perfect one that you need. So next up is software. Everyone has like different budgets and different needs. So I'm going to list some variety of tools that you can use for your specific needs. So first and foremost, I always design everything in Illustrator. I know Adobe is quite expensive, but a good thing is that you can also choose to get a subscription for each of their programs separately, so you can choose which one you need. And that reduces the costs a lot. So as a designer, I would personally recommend to get Illustrator and Photoshop. They kind of go hand in hand for my work. I do all of my design work in Illustrator and apply everything in Photoshop. For example, doing the mockups, but also doing all of the picture editing. I do all of that in Photoshop as well. Another piece of software that I fell in love with recently actually is Pagdora. It's an online design tool for all your packaging design. They have die-lines and mockups because they have like different scenery you can place your work in. And you can even export it as a video and an animation. If you need to print your work to test your design, for example, you can export the die lines, put it into Illustrator, edit it a little bit, and then print it out. And it's seriously amazing how well it works. Like, you cannot go wrong with printing this out and doing it yourself. So it's really amazing specifically for packaging designers. If you have less of a budget, for example, for Adobe, and you'd like to use a web-based tool, you can also use Kittle. They luckily have a whole set of amazing typefaces provided by Monotype. So you know that these fonts or typefaces are just amazing. And it's also great that they have images and mockups integrated to the platform too. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop. You can just do everything there. Then onto equipment, there's hardware. So these are just my personal essentials for hardware, and some of these things are more fun to have, while some are more necessary. So first and foremost is, of course, a laptop, a mouse, and a hard drive. As long as you have these three, you're pretty much good to go. Recommend to get a hard drive also for your backups, and perhaps even another hard drive for a backup, because you don't want to be in the middle of a project and lose all of your work when something goes wrong. Because I think most designers are looking to actually build a sustainable business, and you need to be able to like rely on having access to your work at all times. If a client requests like another version, it gives a sense of security to have backups. You can do that as a physical backup, or you can make backups somewhere else. A mouse is also super important for better and more efficient workflows, especially in Illustrator, in my opinion. And of course, the laptop goes without saying, I think. Then there are other things I love using, which are just a pen and paper for making initial sketches and brainstorming ideas. I love using the Pentel Graph Gear 5000 for sketching. It's a mechanical pencil and it works super well. And I also use a Leuchtturm, can't pronounce German, 1917 notebook. They are so nice, like they flip open and they stay open. It's really nice. I do all of my digital art on my iPad, and she's old but works very well still. And I have like the first generation Apple Pencil to go with it, and it works just fine. And then for the tunes, because we obviously need to listen to music, because without music I cannot work. So normally I just use wired earphones, but I often like to switch to Marshall headphones. They're wireless and they're actually really nice. And then sometimes for project, I also have to print things. I use an HP Tango X for my printing. The paper I use varies, but I really like to go to my local art store, buy like an A2 sheet of paper and cut it into A4s myself. I don't know why I like doing that, but I do. Thick paper also definitely has my preference. It also works quite well in this printer. I'm not gonna lie and say that it's an amazing printer. In my opinion, it's good enough. And related to this are some arts and crafts tools that I use for my packaging designs as well. For example, an X-Acto knife, and I have like one of those perforator cutters. All these things are from Amazon and they work nicely. Another thing that is vital for me is design books. So whenever I start a new project, I always go through these books first to find some inspiration. Some of my favorite books that I have are Logo Modernism. This book is literally like 5 or 6 kilos, I'm not kidding. The other one is Grid Systems. And then I also have one that's called Branding in 5.5 Steps. Typographic Systems is also really great. I also have the package design book from, I honestly don't remember which year, but they bring out a new book every year and it's very great for inspiration. And then also, of course, the Brand Gap. It's an iconic book. You should definitely read it. But these are all nice to flick through for some inspiration. Okay, lastly is cameras. This is more like a personal preference, but I sometimes use the pictures or recordings I've taken on cameras in my design work as well. And regardless, I just need my cameras for like inspiration and for it being like another creative outlet that I want to use sometimes. And I like to rotate between using like digital cameras and an analog camera. One of them is like the Canon PowerShot A80, I believe it is. This like little film camera is like an Afgamatic telepocket camera. Very nice. Then onto resources. Now we actually get to a more important part, because I wanted to provide you also with something that will actually help you move forward as a designer, because like everything is new, especially when you're starting out, and some things are just nice if a person helps you along the way a little bit. So that's why I have this little resources part to help you in the right direction, but also help you a little bit with like improving your work if you feel it's necessary. So as you probably know, I really like using grids. They are like the basis for all my poster and layout work. So this also goes like for menu design, booklet design, but also actually all of my digital products. They are all made using grids. So I wanted to share like my signature 6x5 grid with you. It's the one I started out with, the one I use quite literally all the time. And I hope that sharing this with you and you being able to use it will help you like gain more confidence maybe as a designer and working with like nice and strong layouts, and seeing how well like a grid works to improving your designs. So you can find the link to this grid in the description within the guide. And I also wanted to provide some general tips on improving your portfolio. Your portfolio is super important. It's practically like your visual business card that directly shows what you're capable of. So you need to make the most of it. For your portfolio, it's the best idea to create case studies for each relevant project. However small the project might be, if it seems relevant enough to share, do it. Especially if there's like a specific part that stands out that you want to share, just share it. So in your case study, you can outline the following things. Firstly is the brief. So what is it that you worked on? What were the requirements? What problem did your design solve? You should answer some of these questions in there. And then talk a bit about the strategy. So what was the strategy behind the design, and how would the audience perceive it, for example? Like, why did you do this specific design? Then the sketches. It's nice to show some sketches during your brainstorm and thought process, because it's nice to see some early iterations of the final idea in the end. It shows how you got from an idea to the final product. If this was for a real client, you would consider adding in some feedback that you got and what you did with it eventually. But if you don't have that, then maybe some self-reflection, for example, like, oh, this worked and this didn't work. And then you can show your final designs in full glory. I would really recommend to use some nice mockups or brand pictures if you have them, if you worked for like a real client. And a tip I would give is to use some more mockups that are like in a real life setting where your brand would take place. So if it's for like a cafe, you would like do some packaging maybe that is in a cafe, if you can find some nice mockups for that. So it makes it easier to imagine how the design will live in a real life setting. So I understand that, especially if you're starting out, you might not have any real clients, so you can do some design briefs to build a portfolio. These are pretty much just projects for fake clients, and you can turn virtually anything into a design brief. So I do recommend that you treat the brief like a real client as much as possible. So you think about like the target audience, you think about the goals, you really build like an actual brand in your mind and then start designing around that, because otherwise it doesn't have any meaning. Like, you need to be sure that you actually design for a purpose, for a specific audience, with a specific art direction in mind, like really treat it as a client. So I have like a whole set of more than 35 design briefs in all kinds of categories. And honestly, they're very useful in my opinion. And you can find a link to them also in the description. Having a bio for a portfolio is actually also really nice to have. So it's nice to get to know you a little bit through the bio, but make sure to keep it brief. Like, say a little bit about yourself. Adding a bit of work experience is great if you have it. Otherwise, you cannot really add this, but you can say something about the project that you worked on and what changes you made for the client by doing that work. And it's also a really nice section for you to add a little bit of maybe quotes from the client from your work. And lastly, you can add like a section that clearly outlines what your expertise is. And make sure you really show this expertise in your work, in your portfolio as well. It's better to show that you're really good at 1 to 3 things than at 50 things, because that makes your expertise seem more trustworthy and realistic. If you have like any specific questions about a portfolio or any of these points, you can ask them in the comments, and I will try to answer all of them. And there's like different places where you can build your portfolio. You can also make a portfolio website or a portfolio as a PDF that you send to people, or you can make one on Behance. Like, there's a lot of options where you can do this. As a last resource, I also have a script for a client intro call. It's the one I personally always use as well, and it lists like very general questions that you can ask a client and move into talking about the price and all of that. And I think it's really useful to have a script for all your calls so that you have something to guide you through it and you don't like overthink or you don't lose track. I have shared the script with you also in a starter pack, and again, you can find that through the link in the description. Okay, so that's all of like the most important things that are actually useful for you. And I also have like some fun bonuses. So first of all is the design playlists. So who genuinely doesn't like listen to music while working? Personally, I always have to do that, and it's just music, like not classical. I know some people listen to that and that's all fine, but for me, I need to have like some lyrics. It needs to be pumped up music. So I wanted to share some of my favorite songs with you that I listen to while working. So I'll share them on the screen here, and they include a lot of my guilty pleasures, so please be kind. I have another bonus, which is a coloring sheet, because I like illustrating and I want to do something with my illustrations, so I thought to make like a nice coloring sheet. You can just print it out, put it on your wall, color it in digitally, whatever you like, go for it. I just hope that you enjoy working on it. With that, it wraps up my whole designer starter pack. I know some parts are kind of random, but some things are actually really nice to know, and even the random parts are nice to know, I think. So I really hope you took something away from this video and it helps you move forward with your business or your designs or any of that. And if you want to have like a nice clear overview of this designer starter pack, then just download it through the link in the description. Again, it's free. And I also wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my partners. They're also listed in the description in case you're curious to check them out. That was everything for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching.